It's actually pretty cute. Turn it around so I can see the front side. Oh, snap!
As predicted.
Welcome to a Nonsense Wars production where we look at one of the weirdest sets ever, the Znap 3552 Hover Sub. This $20 126-part set came out in 1998 when LEGO was doing all sorts of weird things. Znap itself was an entirely different, though somewhat compatible building system, much more like Mattel constructs than traditional interlocking bricks. LEGO sold Znap sets for 2 years, but it never took off, and the theme remains obscure and the sets rare. LEGO clearly wanted to brand Znap as its own thing, and the packaging reflects that. The box prominently features a big Znap logo and relegates a tiny LEGO logo to a corner. The very busy artwork shows the main model, a few others, and the 9-volt geared motor and battery box, some of the few old parts in the set. The back has even more models, and both sides allude to the 22 models you can build from instructions and ideas. Parts come in the traditional cardboard tray and mostly consist of the new Znap parts. 3 styles of joiners, light gray, dark gray, and purple, and a bunch of green and black beams and frames. A handful of actual Technic parts round out the contents, some axles and gears, the motor and battery box, and some Znap-specific plastic wheels. The set also has 2 flexible axles, which can transmit power in an arbitrary direction. We will look at these in a bit. Znap pieces join with a ball and socket connector. They go together pretty easily, but they tend to snap your fingers when you take them apart. Beams slide inside the purple connectors, while the light gray connectors stick to form a 3D connector. The dark gray connectors have a cross-axle hole with which you can power Znap models. All of the beams and frames have pinholes every other stud, so they are technically LEGO compatible through and through. One frame piece connects to the 9-volt motor using rails and friction. It also holds 2 16-tooth gears that drop into a slot on top of each other. Axles secure the gears, but one side of one gear rides on its hub for no clear reason. An 8-tooth gear on the motor allows for a 1-to-2 gear reduction, which actually gives the drivetrain a considerable amount of torque. The instructions start with a bunch of simple flat models. We built one of them, this fish, just to show the process of clipping Znap pieces together. The model is otherwise entirely unimpressive, though it does use a decent variety of the large frames. That being said, most of the instructions do implement some kind of motorization. This crab features 2 huge feet attached to tiny cranks, which let it crawl in a surprisingly lively way. By default, the left and right sides have a 180-degree offset, but you can change the phasing to change the walking action. One construction oddity for all of the motorized models: the battery box mounts to the frame using 2x2 bricks with pin. I'm pretty sure LEGO doesn't use this mounting in any other set. The duck leverages the ability of purple connectors to slide on beams. It has a crank mechanism that drives the head forward and backward, causing the model to rock on its curved bottom, partly from changing weight distribution, but perhaps more from the changing momentum. The rocking pattern seems random at first, but it does feel like it usually settles down into a consistent motion. With the next model, we can see a bit of a pattern. It basically uses the same mechanism with a different dressing. The chainsaw obviously can't cut anything, but it does use most of the frames in the set, and it shows you how you can make a relatively large model with relatively few Znap parts. Now we get to the main model, the hover sub. This, whatever it is, has two engine nacelles that slide on curved beams, allowing them to transition between horizontal and vertical orientations. The gearbox then drives the attached propellers using the flexible axles. Most bizarrely, you're supposed to turn the model over along with changing the engine orientation, whereas I think they should have just made an Osprey-like craft instead. It's definitely super weird. Lastly, we made the mixer. This model uses flexible axles to drive two counter-rotating blades. Unlike the saw, I think you could actually use this to stir light liquids, though it probably would not work well. The axles can transmit a decent amount of torque, but not necessarily smoothly. You can pretty clearly see the props on the hover sub and the blades on the mixer surging as they turn. Overall, Znap may not have been a great idea, but like many other multi-sets of similar and older vintage, 3552 does a lot with not much. 22 models is a bit of a stretch since many are flat models and some others are quote-unquote idea models with no instructions. Still, the ones we made had surprisingly wide variety, and I don't think they left too much on the table for range or complexity. On that note, this is the end of the video. Let us know in the comments what other old sets we should review, and have a nice day.
Oh, okay. Show this thing again.
This will, if you put the pin in this.
Okay, so it's just unclear that it's the white thing. Huh. Yeah. So over there, over here.